If your water heater is rumbling, running out of hot water faster than it used to, or pushing cloudy water to the tap, the inside of that tank is almost certainly caked with buildup. The reassuring part is that you can clean it out yourself with a garden hose, sometimes a couple gallons of white vinegar, and about an hour of your afternoon. No plumber, and in most cases, no new heater. The catch is that what everyone lumps together as sediment is actually 3 different things, and each one comes out a different way. Flush the wrong one and you will swear that cleaning your tank does nothing at all. So before you touch that drain valve, let me show you which of the 3 you are actually fighting. I have flushed a lot of these tanks and read through plenty of plumber forums full of people battling the exact gunk you are looking at, so this is the version that actually works in a real basement. Here is the fast way to tell the 3 apart. If the tank pops, rumbles, or sounds like a kettle full of marbles when the burner fires, that is loose sediment. If the noise and the weak hot water hang around even after you flush, you are dealing with hardened scale. And if the hot water smells like rotten eggs or runs out rusty and dark, that is sludge. 1 tank, but 3 separate problems, and each has its own fix. Let me take them one at a time. Start with sediment because it is the most common and the easiest to beat. Sediment is loose mineral grit, mostly calcium and magnesium, that drops out of your water every time the heater warms it up. The harder your water, the faster it piles up on the bottom of the steel tank. That is what makes the popping and rumbling. Water gets trapped underneath the grit, boils, and forces its way up through the layer like a pot lid rattling on the stove. You may also notice your gas or electric bill creeping up, because that grit blanket makes the heater work harder for the same hot water. Left alone, it does real damage. On a gas heater, the sediment blankets the bottom so the burner cooks the steel instead of the water. The glass lining cracks, and the tank eventually rusts through and leaks. On an electric heater, the grit buries the lower heating element until it overheats and burns out. You clear loose sediment with a flush, and it is a 1-hour job. First, kill the heat. On an electric unit, flip the breaker off. On a gas unit, turn the gas control knob down to pilot or off. Next, close the cold water supply valve on top of the tank. If the heater has been running hard, give it an hour to cool, because the water coming out can be hot enough to scald you and keep kids and pets away from the runoff. Hook a garden hose to the drain valve at the bottom and run the other end to a floor drain, a driveway, or out the door downhill. Now open a hot water faucet somewhere in the house which breaks the vacuum so the tank can actually empty. Open the drain valve and let it pour out. What comes out tells you a lot. Loose sediment runs out as sandy white or brown grit, while dark soft muck means you are into sludge territory. Once the tank is down, leave the drain open and turn the cold supply back on in short bursts. That incoming water stirs up the settled grit and blasts it out the hose. Keep going until the water running out is clear instead of cloudy and brown. Then close the drain, pull the hose, shut your faucet, reopen the cold supply, and let the tank fill all the way back up before you restore the power. On an electric heater, that last part matters because firing a dry element will smoke it in seconds. On to the stubborn one. Scale is the same minerals as sediment, but instead of sitting loose, it is baked into a hard white crust fused to the bottom of the tank and caked onto the electric elements. Think of the chalky ring inside an old coffee maker, except welded in place. This is why some people flush their heater, see the water run clear, and still have a noisy tank that runs cold. The hose slid right past the crust. Scale will not budge with water alone. You need acid, and plain white vinegar does the job for a few dollars. Here is the deep clean. Run through the same shutdown and drain steps you just learned, and empty the tank completely. Then you need to open the tank up. On an electric heater, take out one of the heating elements with an element wrench, which is a $10 tool. On a gas heater, unscrew the anode rod from the top to get an opening. Pour in 1 to 3 gallons of undiluted white vinegar through that opening, enough to cover the deposits, and add a little water if you need to. Let the vinegar sit and do the work. Several hours is good, overnight is better, and for a badly scaled tank, a full day of soaking is not overkill. The acid eats the lime scale loose. While you are in there, a wet dry shop vacuum with a thin hose can suck loosened grit straight out of the element port. When the soak is done, flush the tank with clean water several times until it runs clear and the vinegar smell is gone. Then put the element or anode rod back, close the drain, refill completely, and turn the power back on. The third one is sludge, and it announces itself with your nose. Sludge is the soft, dark, sometimes slimy mix of corroded anode rod material, rust flakes, and bacterial gunk. If your hot water smells like rotten eggs, that smell is hydrogen sulfide gas, and it comes from bacteria reacting with the magnesium anode rod inside the tank. It shows up most in heaters that sit on the cool side or get used only part of the year, like in a vacation home. Flushing clears the loose sludge, but it comes back unless you deal with the source. The fix is two parts. Replace the worn anode rod, that sacrificial metal rod that corrodes itself to protect your tank. And when you do, swap the magnesium one for an aluminum zinc rod that resists the sulfur reaction. If the smell is already strong, sanitize the tank. Drain it, add a measured dose of hydrogen peroxide, refill, let it sit a few hours, then flush it out thoroughly. The rotten egg smell goes with it. There is one roadblock that stops a lot of these jobs cold. You go to drain the tank and barely a trickle comes out because Sediment has plugged the cheap plastic drain valve from the inside. Poke a stiff wire or a straightened coat hanger back through the valve to break the clog. If that fails, briefly turn the cold supply on to backflush and push the blockage out, or put a shop vac on the valve opening and pull the pack grid out that way. And once you have it open, do future you a favor and replace that flimsy plastic valve with a brass ball valve. It has a wide mouth that will not clog, and every flush after that takes minutes. A quick word if you have a tankless unit instead of a tank. There is no tank to flush, but the narrow passages inside scale up fast, and that is the number one thing that kills them. You descale a tankless by closing its service valves, hooking up hoses, and using a small pump to circulate white vinegar through it from a bucket for about 45 minutes. Do that once a year, twice a year on hard water, and the unit will run for 15 to 20 years. Here is when to stop cleaning and just replace the thing. A tank heater lasts about 8 to 12 years, less on hard water. If yours is past 10, the sediment is cemented in so hard that nothing flushes, the lower element keeps dying no matter what you do, or the tank is already weeping water from the body itself. Cleaning is wasted effort. A leaking tank is a dead tank. But if your heater is younger than that and just neglected, a cleaning will genuinely buy it years. To keep the buildup from coming back, flush the tank once a year, every 6 months if your water is hard. Drop the thermostat toward 120 degrees since cooler water sheds fewer minerals and scalds nobody. Check the anode rod every couple of years, and if your whole house fights hard water, a water softener attacks the root cause for every appliance you own, not just the heater. So that is the real picture. The loose grit flushes out with a hose, the hard crust dissolves in a vinegar soak, and the smelly sludge clears once you handle the anode rod. Match the fix to the symptom, and a tank you thought was failing usually has years left in it. Everything I mentioned, the element wrench, the brass valve, the aluminum zinc anode rod, and the tankless descaling kit is linked down in the description so you can grab the right one and get this done this weekend.